this panel is very, very, very important. But first of all, I'm going to get everyone one by one to introduce, because I've got an array of people here. I want to just introduce everyone one by one, introduce yourselves. So, Sonny, we'll start with you. If you can tell us your name, where you come from, and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Sonny Ferretti. I've been an actor for about 20-ish years. I'm a mental health first aid instructor, and at the beginning of the year, I set up my own training company, mental health training company, like DEI, that kind of stuff, called Sunny Side Up.
Lovely. Kirsty.
Hi, so I'm Kirsty Marshall. I am a counsellor or therapist, whichever you want to call me. So that's me.
You always debate that, though. Is it counsellor?
I know. Is it counsellor or therapist? Yeah.
Jamie.
My name is Jamie Dennis. I'm founder and chief executive of Mandem Meetup.
Lovely. And Kwesi.
Hi, I'm Kwesi, founder of HOMS CIC, and I'm a counsellor therapist as well.
Well, so yeah, we've got a nice little panel here. So basically, I want to pose one question to everyone here tonight. Think about the last male in your life who said, "I'm all right." When you've asked them, "You good, bro?" And they've said, "I'm all right." When's the last time you actually really believed that they were okay, or was something sort of up? So that's kind of the route we're going to go down with this discussion. Men's mental health, what actually helps with men's mental health? I think we said a few weeks ago on our pod that, like, all mental health obviously is important, but I think with men's it can be a certain, I don't know, there's a certain sort of, it's a bit unique, I guess, in men's mental health, I think, you know. So we'll sort of, that's the sort of overarching thing. So my opening question to everybody, and feel free to do it one by one, in one sentence, what do people misunderstand about men's mental health, would you say? I'll start with a question just to be different. Go that end.
I think I've said it on the pod. I think for me, I think we have to be aware of narratives that get said. I think for me, one of the misunderstandings is that men don't speak. For me, sat opposite men every week, most of the time men are speaking, but a lot of the time it's in their own heads. And I think that's something to be aware of, that it's not silence everywhere. They are speaking, but usually to themselves. And the I won't say the game, the challenge is finding out how that can come out.
Using anybody, just, it's an open floor.
The language that men use is completely different to what society expects poor mental health to sound like. And I think, well, we know that from a study of 3,000 men, 91% of those men took their own life. 83% of those men that took their own life were labeled as low to no risk of suicide. And so the language that men show up and use is going to be completely different to what society is used to. A man can step in front of you and tell you that he's had enough. And that's a big red flag. You need to highlight that. But he might just look like we look today. You get me? Fresh trim. You know what I'm saying? Normal clothes, not disheveled. And so it's a language thing.
And that's a big thing, I think. It's not about, like you say, somebody can look like totally quote unquote normal, but actually it's what's going on up there. And actually sometimes it can be the case. I can imagine a lot of guys who sort of say they're not all right. It's not always taken seriously, is it? Because guys are expected to be that strong. It's not always taken seriously, is it? So how does poor mental health actually show up in men, would you say?
Well, as a counsellor, I see individuals, but I have quite a lot of men at the moment, which is fantastic, which is absolutely brilliant. And I've seen, I've been a counsellor for 8 years now, and I've seen an increase, which is fantastic. But I think going back to the question of what do you think poor men's mental health, what it actually looks like. For me, during sessions, someone can come to me and go, I'm not feeling, okay. And that's the kind of base level. And that's all right. But then it's like, let's try and get deeper. Let's try and talk about, what do you think you're feeling? And then with that comes a kind of self-awareness. But the problem is if you don't, I feel like I've gone off the question now, but I'm just, have I gone off the question? Have I gone off the question?
No. How does poor mental health actually show up in men?
Yeah, but I think the starting point of, I'm feeling something, I just need to find a safe place to go and talk about it. And I think that's the first place, particularly trying to find a counsellor as well that you feel safe with and it's not judgmental. I think quite a lot of the time when man, woman, whatever, but in particular men, it's like, yeah, I'm not okay. There can be a lot of rescuing. I don't know if you found that, if you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. But then you're not actually being heard. It's a type of rejection in itself. So, obviously I'd like to hear you guys, but that's my perception of so far with my male clients anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly, certainly with my own mental health has fluctuated, over the past 20 years from fairly buoyant. And I would say that I'm kind of in that place right now. But I think because the industry itself as a creative, as an actor, there's lots of rejection, there's lots of ghosting. I've always said if you're going to be an actor, it's like living in a haunted house, like you're going to get ghosted at some point. You know what I mean? So I think all of that has had a massive impact on my mental health to the point where, I'd wake up first thing in the morning and think to myself, I just wish it was nighttime so I can just go. But then outwardly, my mental health would present itself to, others as, yeah, good. How you doing? Yeah, you're good. Yeah. And I would always kind of deflect quite a lot. So how are things with you? What's going on? You spoke about your mum last time, actually. How's your mum getting on? Anything to deflect away from me. And very, very quickly, kind of going back to your first question, I think one of the big misunderstandings about men's mental health is that I was doing lots of reading fairly recently about loneliness and how I've always felt like loneliness is fairly synonymous with the older generation, like a little old lady sitting on her own in a flat that's cold. Whereas actually I think maybe not the misunderstanding, but I think what people miss is that actually there's a real loneliness epidemic in this country of men, like 8 million men, describe themselves as feeling lonely once a week. 3 million men feel lonely every day. So I think if we can keep that in mind, I think that's always going to be super helpful because it's not just the elderly that are lonely. Predominantly, it's men as well.
Yeah.
And, for men's mental health or like a risk of it is so complex. It looks like happiness one day, like somebody who's not normally full of energy is a low person, chill person, but the next day is happy. That could be a red flag. Somebody who doesn't express love, but then expresses love one day, that's also a red flag. It's not always happiness or always sadness. That's not a sign. Being sad is not a sign. What if that person is normally just mellow and then they change and they become something else? That's also a red flag to pick up on.
Well, don't you think what's really important though is you could meet the happiest person in the room and they can be chatting. And it's funny how you said, if someone says, how are you? Yeah, I'm great. How are you? So you could meet someone that is super positive and you go, they're fine. When in reality, they could be the loneliest person in the room. And I think that's something to be very observant about. And that's why this is brilliant. You good, bro? It's not just, yeah, I'm fine. How are you? It's, how are you? You doing okay?
We say, I think we've touched upon it a couple of times. Actually, we had a guest on the pod. We have yet to release his episode, actually. But we asked him at the start, at the start of the pod, we say, you good, bro? He said, actually, I'm not. And it sort of took us a bit aback. We were a bit like, yeah, you're supposed to say yes.
Which is good. But
it's great. 100%. Yeah. He was totally honest. I said, well, actually, I had a bit of a bad day. And I thought, oh, do you know what? It's refreshing to actually have that honesty and that truth. And then, you know, we sort of talked about it a bit, and obviously we were aware that we were on a podcast, so we didn't divulge too much about his personal life. But the fact that he actually turned around and said, and the fact that it stunned us is probably a bad sign. The fact that we were like, you're supposed to say yes, man. Like, just, and then we can just move on. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it feels. But then obviously it was eye opener for us in that way. So I think, like, you know, going off the back of that, how do you, if somebody doesn't do that and they are just saying, I'm good, how do you think we spot that? How do you think we spot if, you know, if someone does say, yeah, man, I'm good. How do we spot if actually something there?
I was just thinking as everyone was speaking, is that I think a practical thing to tell people, because I trained, so as a clinician, I'm in loads of people's DMs that I know. Like, they see me coming in like, oh, okay, Kwesy's here. What do and I know, but I think a practical thing to say is you have to earn someone's trust to communicate. And I think one of the biggest things for men's mental health is that there's this automatic, you need to disclose, when mental health for some people is quite sacred. It's quite private. So what I was going to say is that you can only really notice if you know the person. And to know the person means you're going to have to take time. And I think there's many times, if we're not careful, there's the further extreme that we're panicking about anyone. You know, the common thing that we see when someone unfortunately has passed away the next day on social media is a videos post of them the day before. And it's like, look, they were all right the day before, but hang on, there's different cycles of relationship. You know what I'm saying? I come out of work and someone says, oh, you okay, Kwes? Yeah, because you're my work colleague. We don't know each other like that. But I see Jamal next person and it's like, bro, do you know what? Work is stressful because of the relationship. So I think that's also to put as a caveat that it's about getting to know people. And so sometimes I'm starting from the outer circle saying, hey, just checking in. How's things? Or for another guy, it's like, yo, remember we talked about the last time I said I was going to phone you and you said, ask you if you're okay. I'm asking if you're okay. Two different types of relationship, but it's about being close enough to know. If you're close to someone, you notice things. If you're from afar, it's guesswork. That's what I would say.
Do you know what I find interesting about that is that this is going to sound really, but I'm going to say it anyway. So there's been loads of, fairly recently, lots of like charities and organizations and companies saying things like check in with your friends, which in one hand I think is really wonderful. That being said, so as a mental health first aid instructor, a lot of course is based around how to actually check in with somebody. Because for me, checking in with somebody is kind of like this like shape-shifting thing that never really is one thing in your hands. So like is going to work well for me when somebody checks in with me, it's not going to work well for you. It's not going to work well for you. It's not going to work well for you. And so whilst it's wonderful having that message constantly with you, like, oh, I got to check in with that person. But similarly with what you've said, you checked in with that person. They said, no, I'm not okay. And you're like, oh my, okay, what do I do now? So, and that is, I mean, obviously I'm going to push hard for it because that's the job that I do. But I think there should be more effort on the company's behalf, the charity's behalf, to actually explain what checking in actually is. Because I think there's a real sense of, you see, like a mate of mine who's in an advert, I think for Samaritans at the moment, like two lads at the football, he's screaming at the crowd, being like, oh, I'm not okay, something's going wrong. And then the advert ends with them kind of going their separate way. But before they do, they're like, just want to check in. Is everything all right? Like, what's going on? And he does open up. But then they walk off into the distance and you're like, hang on a minute. Like, what? So what does he actually say? What do you actually do? So as wonderful as I think it is, I think checking in is an art. And if you can get it right with so many different kind of personalities, I mean, there's like 50, 60 people in this room tonight, and it will take 50 or 60 different ways in which to check in with somebody. So I think there's real, like, you need to be on it Do you know what I mean?
It's so true, though. I had a client once that said, I don't like talking. So it's really bizarre that I've come to therapy. And I was like, that's all right. We can sit here in silence if that's best. And he was like, can we? I was like, okay. Obviously, we got to a point, it was like 5. Can you imagine? We had 5 sessions of silence, complete silence. But it got to a point where that person just needed time with their own thoughts, but also knowing that there was someone there.
Yeah.
And going back to like the loneliness, and it can be hard when you're lonely within your thoughts and don't feel able to share. So I completely agree. There's so many different ways of trying to kind of not figure out someone, but figure out what's going to be best for one person might not be the best for someone else.
Actually, Sonny, you just touched on it there. And I think that, again, we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago on the pod. Kwesi, once that is sort of identified that somebody's not okay, what then?
The $1 million question.
Yeah.
The $1 million question.
I've got this brilliant panel to answer it.
And, the levels of that it depends on who you are, your capacity. Are you a friend? Are you a professional? Do you need to do safeguarding with that person? At what level are they presenting? I endorse everybody in this room to Google shining a light on suicide and do the training. It will take you 15 minutes and you'll be able to do what you just said. And you'll be able to answer that question. Who's in front of you? That's, it's up to you to make sure that the next step is the right step. And actually, I'll tell you a cold, hard truth here. If that man has full capacity, doesn't have any needs that can't be met by himself, understands the risk, understands what the implications of taking his own life is going to do, or what he's got to do, that's his freedom of choice. And I think everybody in this room has to be okay with that. That doesn't mean that we don't do what we have to do in our day-to-day lives to make people feel welcome, less isolated, less in their own heads, giving them spaces, safe spaces, as safe as possible, because we can't create safe spaces for everybody. But we have to all be okay with their own choice. And that's the sad thing.
What I was going to say is, when someone's not okay, again, I'm at the furthest extreme. So I'm counselling, therapy, or what I do with the NHS during the day. But one of the things I say to people very quickly is, okay, is the thing you normally do to feel better not working? If the answer is yes, then okay, the cycle of your current state of mental health issue isn't working. The next stage may be to get some professional help outside of your help. Because I think what happens is a lot of people automatically say, you need therapy, therapy, I went therapy, you need therapy. You know those ones. People who've experienced the mountain, they want you to come to the mountain straight away. And now I'm just chilling down here, I'm good. But I think it's just important, just if someone says they're stressed out, say, what's the normal things that you usually do? Gym, I'll do this. Are you going to the gym? Nah, I'm not doing that. Then the next step possibly is seeing someone professional. You know what I'm saying? And I know the current situation out there is very difficult. I know that's one of the reasons why I started HOMS, and on the basis of trying to communicate this really private issue to people in the most practical way that they can understand, especially in a city where there is stress. The language, many times people feel is far way up there clinically to be able to understand, but basic things like the normal things you do, are you doing them? Well, no, try doing that. That might be the trick, or it might be a step further. I might need to speak to a friend, or no, I might need to speak to someone who can clinically help me.
I think it's interesting as well, like, because I speak to so many people during my job, and also just like on a day-to-day level, that I think part of me feels like that, what do you do if somebody's feeling this way? I kind of feel like everybody kind of is in some way. I find it really hard to differentiate. I mean, it literally happened this morning. So I have an ECG monitor strapped to my chest right now. And I went in this morning to go and get it attached. And I spoke to the nurse and never met her before, like met her 10 minutes ago. And then within the first 10 minutes, she was weighing me and she was giving me my height and she was shaving my chest. And within 10 minutes, we were messing about because I was like, oh God, I've got a bit of holiday weight. Hilarious. And so she was like laughing and giggling about that as well. And she was like, you know what? You've actually made my morning actually, because I was really not having a great morning. So thank you for that. And I was like, and so instantly, as soon as it happens, like I invest. And so I was like, I'm so sorry to hear that. What was going on? Oh, my ex-husband is going in for a hip replacement and he's been waiting since July for it. And he got in there. He's not really one for cutting out like food and stuff like that because he eats a lot of the time, but they say don't eat before blah, blah, blah. And he gets in there this morning. I'm stressed about it. He's stressed about it. And the nurse comes in, offers him a cup of tea. He says yes. And then the surgeon or the doctor comes in and says, we can't do the surgery because milk is classified as food. And if you're going under, then that might be a choking hazard. I'd never met this woman. And within 10 minutes, she was telling me the story. So I'm like, oh man, that's awful. That's really, I was like, how's he feeling about it? And so she told me, and I said, how are you feeling about it? She was like, I was angry. Now I've calmed myself down a little bit. So these moments of connection, do you know what I mean? I think that's what people want. They want the connection, particularly this time of year when there's so much stress and expectation. Christmas is going to be amazing. You know, my kids are really looking forward to it, but you're stressed out because of money. I kind of feel like everybody's just finding everything tough. You know what I mean?
But don't you think that's magic? That's magic what happened.
I'm just a magician, Kirsty.
You are. You're literally, no. But you never know how you're going to impact someone.
That's it.
So even that probably changed a whole outlook on that day.
I hope so.
Even though, like, you know, it happens all the time. I personally, if I'm in a taxi, for example, I might only be going a mile and a half down the road, but in that mile and a half, I know everything about this person's family. I know everything about everyone knows me anyway, knows that I chat anyway, but whatever. You know, I get it from my dad who's there somewhere, who you'll probably meet later, everyone. You know, but it's that, like I say, the little things are actually like following up the question, like, oh, like, you all right? And then they say, oh yeah, I'm right. They follow up and say, okay, how's your day been? And then even something like that might then just open up everything else. And then even that little sort of interaction you've had, like you're saying, it could make her day completely. And then, you know, even that can make her a little bit better. So I think it is those little moments, like you say. Following up on that, and I don't want to put a negative slide, but what doesn't work, even though it's well intentioned, what doesn't work, would you say, in that way of trying to help someone?
Sorry, I've literally put my microphone to it because it's the typical, oh, don't worry about it. Which I think is kind of, I think it's just quite a natural response for people, because in a way it's rescuing yourself, but also that person. Like, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. Everything will be all good. When in reality, you're dismissing that person's feelings and what's going on for them. So that would be, please try as much as possible not to do that.
I think any kind of interruption when somebody's talking will ruin the flow of the conversation. So even if they found the courage, which takes a lot of courage and a lot of trust to start opening up, to interrupt them, offer solutions, offer unsolicited advice to try and fix somebody who isn't even broken, that's going to ruin it. That is an awful thing to do. And to add to that, at least the first thing somebody shares here, and then you say, well, at least it's, imagine someone, you just poured your heart out and someone said, oh, well, at least it's, that just diminishes everything that you've said.
And that's a guy thing, right? I mean, that's a guy thing to give advice. So let's be real. I mean, it is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I would say, to add to what's been said, if you're a gossip, forget about it. And I'm saying this to men as well. Yeah, I'm specifically saying this to men because of this stereotype. Oh, women chat, did it? No. If you are a gossip and you living by the bouncers and all those types of kind of like internet information. I want to know, have you heard about, forget any man telling you anything. Tell you that now. If you're a gossip, forget about it. Because the first thing a guy's going to think is, if I tell you this, everyone's going to know. And listen, don't say anything, but so doesn't work because they will say something. So if you want to erode that ability, be a gossip, man. No one would, that there kills it before it even starts. Yes. Sorry, I had to be passionate about that because,
I love passion.
because being a counsellor, there's this whole thing about confidentiality. So this is our world. And people will say things and they're looking in your face to think, is he going to be judgmental? Is this the lack of hair? Is he getting hair by what I've just said? But I'm surprised so many times by people who are talking about the latest gossip about people they don't even know, but expect the people closest to them to tell them things. It doesn't work.
Bro, you already said it about trust.
Yeah.
You get me? Men don't share because they feel like their vulnerabilities are going to be weaponized against them.
Okay.
And it's happened generation after generation. And it's because of this, you tell somebody who you think is a brethren or a safe place, and yet they go bitching and telling someone else. It ruins everything. And that is a big thing. Men only don't share with you because they don't trust you.
Yeah.
That's it. Men want to talk, but they need a safe space and the right platform to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, everyone here works with men in different ways, but generally roughly the same, but slightly different, obviously coming out from different sort of angles. What is the biggest thing that you would say has helped you in the work that you guys do with men and men's mental health?
I think for me, it's been I think predominantly with men, but this is something that I've experienced with lots of people with the training that I do, is that I think the more self-reflective you can be, I would argue that the better relationships, the more self-reflective you can be and the more vulnerable you can make yourself, I think for me are the two biggest tools to make yourself, to give you the better fighting chance of having stronger connections with people. The reason why I say about the self-reflection thing is because when you check in with somebody, for instance, I know I keep going on about it, but when you check in with somebody, if somebody starts talking to you, if you say, Jam, what's going on with you, man? Not feeling great today. The more self-reflective I can be, how am I going to feel in that situation if he says it's not okay? If he gets super emotional, how am I going to feel in that situation? If he gets defensive, if he gets really upset, if he storms out, how am I going to feel in that situation? Not that it's about me, but the more I can have a better understanding about myself, how I am in those situations, the more fully rounded I can be as a person, so that if that situation does present itself, I'm going to try my best not to take it personally. I'm going to give them the space that they need. I'm going to, own the vulnerability and say, listen, man, I'm here for you. I'm here if you want to talk. If you're upset with me, please tell me. If I've done something wrong, please tell me. I think the more vulnerable you can make yourself, as long as you feel safe, and the more self-reflective you can be, I think they're massive, but they take such a long time. I'm 42 and I'm still learning it now. And I feel like I've had a massive change with how I deal with other people and how I deal and treat with myself. That I think that certainly for me is has been a massive change about how I deal with men's mental health thing.
Right, so because you've said, Kirsty, that you had a massive kind of increase in males that have come to you.
Yeah.
So what's the number one sort of thing that you a tool you might use, not a tool, but what's the number one thing that helps you with kind of, working with men in that way?
I think first and foremost, it's creating that safe space. I think when anyone meets a counsellor, you want to feel safe, and sometimes it can take a while to find your person when it comes to a therapist. So I think being able to give someone a safe place to talk, and some people may have never had that. So I think that's also a really important thing. Regarding a tool, for me, I think just as a therapist, it's being there for someone. And then when they do start opening up, it's more like, this is brilliant, I'm responding back to you. Hopefully that builds up some sort of self-worth, like your voice is important. So let's try and understand your words, and let's try and understand this kind of the awareness of it all, which then comes with self-awareness. And we can go, oh, I'm figuring that, but I'm getting triggered because of this, which happened years ago. So that is why I'm feeling like this. I'm okay. But I'm just feeling, do you see what I mean? It's their whole self-awareness. So once you get that safe place, that right person to work with, that is there just for you and you alone, then hopefully it works out in a good way.
Now, Jamie, obviously you do a lot of different things. It's not, it's not therapy, it's not, but you actually do a whole host of different activities with the Mandem. What in that space, what makes what you do special in that way, that it's not just kind of sit down talk, it's, hiking, I'm sure you do cooking, all sorts. So you tell us a bit about how that environment helps with what you do.
So the idea is just to meet men where they are. We want to create authentic spaces. So that means I have to be authentic. All my life I wore a mask, you get me, just to be safe. So now I can take the mask off, and that allows the men in the room to take their mask off as well, and then for them to feel safe. We create community. Everything we do is about just building a brotherhood. And we do things that the lads want to do. We speak to them, they tell me, and I go and make it happen. From hiking, I just come from Rockover at Cheetah Mill because the lads want to do rock climbing, you get me? So I patterned some money for them, and then they're going to go climb up some walls, and that's going to help with their mental health, you get me? Just togetherness, overcoming adversity, even if it's just shoulder to shoulder. They get to talk on the wall, they get to solve a problem together, and then after that they leave there, but they've made a brotherhood, they've got friendship. It's community, it's authenticity, it's honor, it's communication. You get me? These are the values that we stand by, and these are the things that bring the lads together and make them feel safe.
And Kwesi, you work, one of your kind of USPs is the ways that you work with creatives. Tell us again a bit about kind of what kind of helps you with that work in terms of kind of your way of being, or any kind of I'm going to use the word tools again, to help with that.
I think it's just like a full circle moment, because Javino was mentioned, and I remember watching his videos and just the humanizing of people. And I think what happens a lot of times is people come into a room thinking that what they're going through is too big for the room. And so in therapy, there's this whole term we trained about called holding the room. And so what I found is, again, what's been said here, meeting people where they are. And so I've had different people come in, different ages, but that non-judgmental, that just allowing them to be themselves, their personality, their likes, they're listening to what they're saying, they're asking of questions that they've never been asked before. That for me, always is a joy to see how different people respond to almost the same thing, but holding the room. I've had guys come in a defensive statement. They've come in with, don't know why I'm here. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know why you're here. You know, I know why you're here. But we'll get there in 1-2 sessions time. Or I don't think you can handle what I'm going through. And I'm like, bro, rush home. The 90s, look it up. We grew up in that. So I know that I can go levels deeper than what you've got to bring. But again, it's not about me. So I'm not like, you know where I'm from? Do you know where these grey hairs came from, bro? It's like, I'll just act however I need to be just so you're comfortable, and then we'll get there.
Right. Do you know, can I super quickly? Yeah. I think because it brings, I was reading this thing, I'm going to sound like such a douche when I say this. So I was reading this thing by Carl Jung, who said that and this is kind of tying back into what you've just been talking about. Like he said, loneliness is not about not having people around you. It's about the inability of that person to communicate what is important, what seems important to them. So I think the reason why I looped it back to what I was talking about was it feels like there's just a real loneliness problem with men because they just don't have the ability to say, I want to tell you that I feel sad. I want to tell you that I feel lonely. You know, I want to say to my wife that I'm really, really sorry for what I did last week, you know, just anything like that, but just having the inability just to be able to communicate it, because you can be the most popular person in the room, have a massive smile on your face and still feel the most lonely, or still feel super defensive, like, oh, what are you going to tell me? You're going to tell me what, you know. And I've been that person as well. Like, you know, what are you going to say to me? Like, oh, I'm incurable. But, you know, it's about taking the time to say, are you really feeling angry right now? Or are you feeling sad? Or are you feeling lonely? You know, it's just about communicating that thing that seems important to them in an effective way.
Well, look, guys, thank you so much for all of that wisdom in these four people. Honestly, I'm sure I speak for everyone when I can say we could listen to your chat all evening, to be quite honest. So we have to do it again and just give you the whole 2 hours.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you guys again. Thank you, these guys. Where can we find you all? Because you all do different things. Where can we find you all?
So I'm on sunnysideup.co.uk. Find there's more information there about the work that I do. Drop me a message. I'm on Instagram as well.
So there are counselling websites. There's like the BACP, British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy, and the Psychology Today. That's where you'll find me, along with many, many other counsellors. But yeah, those 2 websites in particular. So thanks.
Google Mandem Meetup.
Yeah,
For sure, man.
That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
At Mandem Meetup on all socials. We've got a WhatsApp group as well. There's over 700 Manchester men in our WhatsApp group as well. So,
Wow.
Hum CIC. I'm also on counselling therapist websites, but if you directly Hum CIC on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Now,